So welcome back to iPexpert's CCNA data center videos. In this video we're going to go through a Nexus booting. So I'm going to show you guys a 5K switch at the command line booting. I'm going to show you guys some of the basic configuration options. We're going to go through some of the user prompts, and we're also going to go through the file systems and some of the structures that you're going to see within these NXOS devices. So without further ado, let's go ahead and cruise on over to the CLI where I have a Nexus 5K brought up. So let me show you guys. We will go in here and we can see, I'll do a show version, show you guys what we're actually running here. So as you can see, we are running a Nexus 5548 chassis. And this is just the base chassis. If I do a show module, we can see which actual modules we have on here. And we have no layer 3 daughter card, so this is a non-layer 3 daughter card that's actually applied here. So with this, we have some configuration currently on this device, and since we're already here and I have to clear the configuration to show you guys the reboot, I wanted to go ahead and show you guys some of the write erase commands that we can use to clear the configuration. On these particular switches, remember in the last video I showed you guys that we had that out-of-band management port. Now that out-of-band management port on these devices is actually called management 0. So if I do a show run interface management 0, we can see on this particular device here at our Proctor Labs that it has an IP address on it. Now this IP address is specifically assigned to a VRF, which we're going to go over in the next video. But what I want to show you guys is that if I say show run and we include route, I have a route in here that's actually under the VRF definition for this interface. So when we go to clear this configuration, I'm going to show you guys that we have two options here. We can write erase and just blow away the startup config, or we can say a write erase boot. So when we take a look at the commands, we can do write. We'll hit tab there. Tab will fill in the command for us as long as there's no other command starting. If I just do W and hit tab, it shows me that there's two commands for W. I can use where or write. So if I do the next line, you can see that the H and the R are different, and I hit tab now, it's going to go ahead and fill that in for me. So that's one of the big benefits. That's how you can get really fast at the Cisco command line, is using that tab key. So if I do write erase, again I use tab, and I do a question mark here to show me what other options do I have for this command under where I'm currently at. I can say write erase boot or write erase debug. What I really want to show you guys here is that I have the ability, as seen here with the carriage return, I can just hit enter here. When I hit enter, it's going to erase my startup config, but it's going to retain my IP address here under my out-of-band management interface, as well as any routes that I have with that guy. So what I want to do is just say write erase and hit enter, and it's going to tell me this command is going to erase the startup config. Do you wish to proceed? So I'll go ahead and hit yes, and then what it's going to do, it's going to erase my startup config. But it's going to retain, again, that management IP, my route, and my boot variables, which is very important. So if I did a write erase boot, it would clear out my management address, it would clear out my boot variables, and I'd be basically starting from scratch. I'd have nothing. So I'm just going to do a write erase, and now we're going to show you guys basically when we type reload, the process that this switch goes through as it reloads. Now bear with me because it's going to take a little bit of time, but I want to show you guys the steps as they actually happen here. So I'm going to enlarge the screen, and we're going to type reload. So it's going to ask me, is it okay to continue, and I'll hit yes. So we can see that it all starts going down. We actually get some kernel processes. You guys know when you reboot Linux, it says the system is going down now. We're kind of getting the same thing. Basically, the kernel is informing all the processes that we're gonna unmount file systems, that we're gonna stop services, and that we're actually gonna reload the system. So it's going through now. So let's just watch it as it reloads and see some of the steps that it goes through as it comes back up. Because hopefully the first thing that we're all going to see here is that we're going to see that kickstart actually start. So bear with me, I might not talk a lot through this process, but I'll kind of point out the important items as they come about. So these 5Ks, they take a little bit of time to reload, but not nearly the amount of time that the 7Ks do, so that's why I kind of picked the 5Ks for us to look at. So it should start coming up now, and we'll see that it's booting this kickstart image. Notice by the kickstart here. So that's going to be the first thing that it actually unpackages and boots to. So right now it's booting the Kickstart. What we should see next is that it's going to do some post functions. So it's doing some post on the CPROM, the gigabit Ethernet port test. We're going to see it test the out-of-band, or the Ethernet out-of-band channel, the EOBC, which is an internal, basically, signaling mechanism within the system that's non-configurable on our part. So it'll go through our post test. Hopefully they all pass. We don't want it to fail, that's for sure. So it'll have a couple of these that it does. All right. So it did the PCIe test. Checked our file systems. And now it's starting to load that system software that I talked about. Remember in that last video that we did, I drew out the Kickstart, and then on top of it we had the system software. So notice that it's loading and uncompressing the system software, but that it's 513, and then we see the same 513 referenced up here in the Kickstart image. So now that it's actually uncompressing and loading that up, we're going to see it start some of these services, mount file systems. The kernel's starting to kick in and register here. So the next thing we should see is ASIC testing begin, and that'll be pretty much the last thing that happens before this system is fully booted up. So it's still going here. I think we've been about 2 minutes, which isn't bad. Could play the Jeopardy song, that'd be nice, huh? I'd hum it, but I am a horrible hummer. But you guys can do it in the background if you want. So it's still loading up. We can see if I hit enter here, nothing comes up. If you ever wonder if it's fully booted, you can hit enter, and if you see the user prompt at that point, then you should be able to log in. So we're seeing some errors on this particular system, that we're missing some fans, and now it's kind of finished. So now we're seeing the actual initial setup of these Nexus 5Ks, which is good. You guys get to see me go through and just kind of set some of the general parameters that we're going to need from the beginning of any Nexus switch is going to boot to this screen when we write erase and reload them. So here we can choose whether we want to enforce secure password, which is basically, do we want to Cisco's got a bunch of stuff out there in the configuration guide. If we enforce secure passwords, we have to have so many uppercase, lowercase numbers. If I just try to type, so even if I type in no here, if I type in Cisco and hit enter, and Cisco again, it's going to let us. Now, if we were to enforce strict passwords, it would not have let us do that. It would tell us that's too common of a character. We can't use anything with CC. You know, it'd have uppercase C, lowercase c, uppercase I, all the way through Cisco, and it tells us that we basically cannot use that. So now that we've typed in that password for our user admin, it's basically going through and telling us, do we want to go through the initial configuration dialog? We're all engineers here, so of course we don't. So we're going to type no, and it's going to bring us to a login prompt. So at this point, it's just called switch. So we need to go in and we'll say admin, and I'll type in Cisco. So now you can see I'm basically at the exec mode of these prompts, which is indicated by this pound sign. So from here, I can do stuff like show run. We can see if they're, the basic running config that's on this device. We can also see that it's retained my management IP. And right up here, we'll see that it kept my route as well for that VRF. So all good stuff there, and that's again the big difference between write erase and write erase boot. So now that we're here, I'll kind of take you guys through and show you the interface levels, how we can verify where we're at, because like I mentioned, this is just exec mode. I can type in CON and go into configuration mode. Again, I don't have to type in the whole command because I can type in, let's see how far we can go. C tab. Okay, so I can't do that. There's a lot of C stuff. CO tab. Can't do that. So CON tab. I hit configure and it's going to default to config T. So right off the bat, I can just type in CON. I'm in configuration or global configuration mode. So from here, I can start to program stuff like my host name. Okay, so I could say in 5K1. Another cool feature that a lot of people don't know about because this was ported over is that there's also something called the switch name, and I could say N5K2 and it would change it. Host name and switch name, we can use either of them. You know, it's either or, and it doesn't really matter. So if you're told to maybe change a host name ever, but you can't use host name command, we know we can use the switch name command. I'm going to go ahead and rename it back to N5K1. So here in global configuration mode, I can actually type the command where, and it'll tell me where I'm at. I'm just in configuration mode under this user. So with that, I also want to show you interface configuration mode. So let's go into interface management 0, and we can see that we've changed now, and we're in interface configuration mode. So let's type where from here and see where we're at. Okay, so I'm under configuration mode, interface management 0 with this user. Cool, I know exactly where I'm at. If I ever get lost in the CLI, I know where I'm at. But this is interface configuration mode. If I were to create a sub-interface, there's also a sub-interface creation mode, and it's actually just going to append off to the right here of the IF that we're in sub-interface configuration mode. There's also that concept, if you came from CCNA or CCNT, of lines. So if I look here, and we go under a line, so let's, in this system, we'll say line VTY, and notice there's no 015 here. We're actually just looking at line VTY. So when I come in here and type where, it's going to tell us exactly where we're at, and this would where we, you know, all the same old stuff, our access classes, things of that nature, we're able to access straight from this point. So now we have kind of just verified that we have some of these different configuration modes, interface configuration, sub-interface, line configuration. I also want to show you guys users and some of the built-in roles within these systems. So let's look. If I do a show run include user, I want to look at this username admin. I created a weak password, right? We just did Cisco. And we want to do something better than Cisco because Cisco just isn't secure, and that's not our policy at Proctor Labs anyway. We want it to be capital iPexpert 123. So I want to investigate though, because this username or this user admin that it created, it did as a role. So I want to discuss these roles and kind of show you guys the options that we have available just right off the bat. So I'm going to go back in and modify this. I'm going to say username admin. And we'll just tab this out and we'll kind of explore it as we go. So I'll say role. We can see the built-in system configured roles that we have are network admin and network operator. So that's built in, guys. You can also see down here at the bottom we have VDC admin and VDC operator. Those are going to be applicable when we're on a Nexus 7K. So when we have the concept of virtual device context in the 7K, we can actually do a user that's specific for a VDC. Here we don't have that option because we're just running a 5K. So we have the ability to do network admin or network operator, and they're given different functionality, basically read-write for admin and read for operator. So what I'm going to do for this admin role is make him a network admin. Then we need to do a password. You see we can do an expiration date, and I'm just going to do iPexpert123 and hit enter. So now if I did a show run include username, we're not really going to see anything different. But what we've done and what I've shown you is that those two default roles are network admin or admin and operator on these Nexus 5K platforms. Again, if we're on the 7K, then VDC admin and VDC operator are applicable roles built into the system that we can use. So with that, I also mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit about the file systems. So again, this is very Linuxy. We are running on top of a Linux kernel. We can run the dir command, however, and see that we're looking directly into boot flash. So I'm looking in boot flash here, and I can see that we have a couple different folders indicated by the slash here at the end. And I can also see that there's quite a few files here, including vlan.dat, vtp.dat, iPexpert.dat, and just some random stuff that other people have put in here. So what I want to show you guys is that on these systems we're specifically looking at boot flash, but we can still, say we wanted to look in one of these folders, I can still come in here and say change directory, boot flash, and then we'll just copy and paste this in. And we should be able to hit enter here. Now if I did dir, we're looking within this folder in boot flash. So if I wanted to change back to boot flash and dir, and now we can see. What if we wanted to look at the contents of one of these files? Have you ever wanted to just explore something in here? Like maybe we want to see what this base config is. We can actually do a command called show file, and then we'll just put in our path, boot flash, and we'll look at base config. We'll just copy and paste that in. And we'll hit enter here, and basically it's showing me that file as we look at it, which looks a lot like the base running config, right? So those options are available there, and I want to mention that when we save our running config on these devices, and we actually type out copy run start, where we're copying the running config to startup config, we're still saving that startup config in NVRAM. However, the running config is actually loaded into RAM, so we're still using the same concepts, can be translated or brought back from the iOS world into this world of NXOS, I should say. So I've shown you guys a couple of the features here, but I haven't shown you the features. So let's take a look and just say show feature. So these again are those modular features I was telling you guys about, and if we just say show, it'll tell us what features are available to the system, which are enabled and which are disabled. And this is the actual name we'd use, guys. So if we wanted to enable something here in global config mode, I could say feature, hit tab or question mark, and I could just type in RIP. And it's going to bring in the RIP feature and turn it on. So now I'll say show feature. When we go down here to RIP, we'll see now that RIP is enabled, but it's not running. We haven't actually started a RIP process yet, but it is enabled and it is available for us to use as a command now within this system. There are also something called feature sets. So if we look here at feature set, we don't have any of them. You have to actually install these feature sets. So if we did show feature set, we could see that there are two feature sets, fabric path and virtualization, but both are uninstalled. To actually install these, we'd have to say install feature set. Okay? We'd have the ability to install them, and then we would enable the feature set just like we did the feature earlier. So that is available. So we've looked at tab, we've looked at question marks, but I haven't kind of messed anything up yet because I want to show you guys what we refer to in the Cisco world as the caret. So let's do show blah. Okay? This, my friends, is our caret. Now the caret is telling us where we went astray. So show B must have had something under it. So let's take a look. Show B. Yep, I could have done show banner or show boot. So I went wrong at my L. Now is the caret always like perfect? Is it telling us, hey, you messed up right here? It's not always perfect, guys, but in some instances it is. In this specific instance, it is telling us exactly where we messed up. So the caret is there, so just be cognizant of it and use it when it shows up to kind of help you troubleshoot where maybe your command syntax messed up a little bit. Now, if you guys have never used or looked at command history, you can use the up arrow to go back through the commands you've typed in, or the down arrow to go back up to where you're blank slate again. So as you hit up arrow, it'll take you back through all your commands. And if you missed it, you can hit down and go back up. So we can also use Control P and Control N for these. So if I hit Control P, we can see that it's going back through. And now I'm going to hit Control N. And we can see it's bringing me back up as if I were hitting the down arrow. So, you know, like anything in the Cisco world, there's different ways to do it. Control P, Control N, up, down. We also have Control C that we can use. So Control C, if I was in the middle of maybe a ping, we'll just make something up. And I wanted to stop, I could hit Control C and it would stop me. Now you guys saw I hit, maybe I go into Interface Management 0. I hit Control C, I stay in that prompt. If I wanted to back all the way out, I could actually hit Control Z here and it would bring me back to exec mode at that point. So Control C kind of stops things while it's happening. Control Z will actually back us out of our configuration mode, kind of back to the beginning, right? And that's kind of the main hotkeys I use. So you know, the tab, the question mark. I use up and down myself, and I'll sometimes use Control Z and Control C. A lot of times I'll find myself, if I'm in configuration mode, I go in maybe an interface. You can type in exit to go down one level, and if I hit up and go back into management 0, I can actually type end and achieve the same result. So I usually use exit and end because if I'm wanting to just exit out one level, I'll type exit, or I can type end. So let's go all the way back in here. I could type end as I just showed you guys, or I could just type exit twice. I'm kind of old school, so I still type exit a lot. I'll find myself using exit to back out like 3 levels instead of just typing end and going back. So another just time saver, but there's, again, different ways to do stuff in the Cisco world. So the last real thing I want to show you in this video is just a basic setup on these guys. So what if we wanted just to set up SSH? So let's just go through the normal procedures, and kind of like we would in the iOS world. I've already got a host name, but if I needed to change it, I could say hostname N5K or NK5. I've got a user. We'll verify, show run, include user. If you guys didn't know about the pipe command, I do a show run, and if I want to just parse my running config file, so run again is short for running config, I can type in pipe here, and then I have a couple options. You know, I can grep, I can count. I like to use include and section a lot, so I'll use include, and I'll type in like user, because I want to find anything with the word user in it. And as we can see here, it found this line with user and this line with user. But I do have a user configured, so I need to do a couple more things, right, to enable SSH. What, if you remember, we just talked about were features, right? So let's see if there's a feature for SSH. We'll say include SSH. Hey, there is, and it's already enabled. So it's already enabled as part of our initial configuration. Like the system boots up, we did a write erase, SSH server is actually enabled for this guy. So what else do we need to do? We need to configure a domain name, right? So it's the same syntax. We'll just say IP domain name. Then we'll just give it some. We'll say iPexpert.com. So now I've got a domain name configured. I also need to go in and do maybe some SSH keys, right? Because if I just tried to straight SSH to this guy right now, it would fail. So just like in the Cisco world, we try to type in crypto, and we'd see there's nothing there. Because remember in iOS, it's crypto key generate, you know, RSA, blah, blah, blah. Here we don't have that ability. So let's kind of just explore. It'd be intuitive to be SSH. Oh, there it is. So we'll type in key. We'll say we're going to do RSA, and then we get to give it the number of bits. So we're just going to say 2048 because we're going to be super secure. So RSA key's already present, so I'm just going to force, so we write over them. Couldn't delete it, but that's the command we'd use if the RSA keys were not present. So we've created our keys. We should have the ability now to SSH into our system, but as you can see, it's still the same steps that we needed when we did traditional iOS-based setup for stuff like SSH. We still need to do a domain name. We still need a user. We still need a switch name, and we still need to generate keys in order to SSH to that device. So finally, what about stuff like just marking our interfaces? Has anything changed in there? And the answer is no. If we wanted to go in and say int management 0, and we wanted just to give it a good description, we're still just going to type description. So we'll type description, this is management. Now if we do a show run int management 0, we can see our description on there, and we've kind of accomplished the same goal using the same commands. So again, as you can see, not a lot's changed. We still have our hotkeys, we still have descriptions, we still have SSH keys. Some of the minor syntax nuances that have changed, they're fairly easy to overcome, and luckily we're involved with Cisco, right? So our documentation and our user community and the support is out there to help us, and a lot of people write blogs nowadays, including us here at iPexpert. So always try to follow us and just look at or try to find what you're looking for if maybe the command syntax has changed on you. So in our next video, we're going to start diving into a lot of the kind of peculiars within this Nexus system, okay? So we're going to look at what I call the 3 Vs, which are VDCs, VLANs, and VRFs. So just get ready. There's going to be a lot of information, a lot of hopefully new information in these next couple of videos that we'll see in particular with NXOS devices. I look forward to it. Thanks, guys.